Along a path of years serpentine, in the coiled blackness of her nascent core, the earth goddess toils across the sands of time. A being is in her whom she hopes to know. A word speaks to her heart she cannot hear. A fate compels whose form she cannot see. In her unconscious orbit through the void, out
in today's video, we're going to show you how to
her
stream a pre-recorded
mindless
video.
depths, she strives to rise. A perilous life again, a struggling joy.
Uh, we're reading in Book 1, Canto 4, The Secret Knowledge. We're on page 56. 56, line 379. In the earlier part of the poem, we've been introduced to Savitri and the issue for which she has come to earth, to wrestle with the shadow she had come, to win or lose the godlike game for man. It says, to wrestle with the shadow she had come and must confront the riddle of man's birth and life's brief struggle in dumb matter's night, whether to bear with ignorance and death or hew the ways of immortality, to win or lose the godlike game for man, was her soul's issue thrown with destiny's dice. And afterwards, in Canto 3, we were introduced to her father. So it backtracks in time, the poem backtracks. And that canto begins, a world's desire compelled her mortal birth. One in the front of the immemorial quest. That's Aswapati, her father, protagonist of the mysterious play in which the unknown pursues himself through forms and limits his eternity by the hours, and the blind void struggles to live and see. A thinker and toiler in the ideal's air, brought down to earth's dumb need her radiant power. So he brought Savitri down, incarnated in his daughter. And then in Canto 3, we kind of take a pause in the action of the poem, and Sri Aurobindo reveals to us the knowledge, the secret knowledge that Aswapati has so far gained in his yoga. He has already had very high spiritual realizations. And here we're given a view of his perception of reality. And in particular, the aspect that there is this high spiritual existence beyond, and then there is this struggling life that we see here on earth, and how these need to be integrated with one another in one experience. So we're given views of this high spiritual state to which one can attain, and on the other hand, we're given views of the difficulties and struggles and ignorance and death and perversion and all these things that we face here on earth in our lives. So how to reconcile those? And so this is the knowledge that we're given in these pages. Bhavan has referred to this canto as kind of another Upanishad. So it's kind of, it really gives in a short space an overall view of existence and of reality. So, beginning now on page 56, line 379. Would you like to start? 379. This is our deepest need.
This is our deepest need, to join once more what now is parted, opposite and twain, remote in sovereign spheres that never meet, or fronting like our poles of night and day. We must feel, or we must fill the immense lacuna we have made. Re-wed the closed finite's lonely consonant with the open vowels of infinity. A hyphen must connect matter and mind. The narrow isthmus of the ascending soul. We must renew the secret bond in things. Our hearts recall the lost divine idea. Reconstitute the perfect word. Unite the Alpha and the Omega in one sound. Then shall the spirit and nature be at one.
Thank you.
Twain is your twin?
Twain, no.
Twin?
Let me see the line.
Opposite and twain.
Tween is not, it's not like twin, I think it's like apart.
Very good. It's not separate from you. It's opposite. It's seeming opposite, but it's actually part of you.
Divided. So Sri Aurobindo gives us a few images here of this division between matter and spirit. And this need to join the two. So they seem like far poles of night and day. Or he again brings up this kind of metaphor of language to illustrate this. Re-wed the closed finite's lonely consonant with the open vowels of infinity.
I have here in the book with Twain,
Mm.
the definition,
Mm.
very simple,
Mm.
an archaic word for two, disunited, separated.
The one in the many.
Which book is that?
Huh?
Which book?
Yeah.
Which book? The name of the book?
The word
Yes, yes.
and I have the file, so I can give it in the computer so that
And then he has the image of the isthmus, which is like a small piece of land that connects two larger areas of land.
Ah, yes. Like the one between Sri Lanka and India. There's an isthmus there.
Mm, yeah.
You know, not quite.
But it's a bridge. No,
Yeah, leap over.
there was nothing. There was isthmus is a connection, a narrow connection between two bigger parts of land.
Central America,
Yes.
North and South America.
Corinth
Yes.
was.
It's a kind of thing.
So, but the symbolism is very clear from these lines, you know, that the reunion must happen.
Yeah, so there's matter and spirit, and then he's identifying the ascending soul as that isthmus between the two. The developing soul is connecting matter and spirit.
The yoga,
Yes.
the union.
Yes.
What is it?
Yeah, we're just saying it's a small strip of land that connects two larger pieces of land.
Smaller.
Yeah, narrow. Like the illustration of like Central America, Panama connecting North America with South America.
No, I listen, Laurie. Thank you.
She's saying what I say.
Yeah, but
It's
not
okay.
talking
Yeah.
to him. Sorry,
Say to him.
respect.
And then the Alpha and Omega, another kind of language metaphor, the first and the last letters of the Greek alphabet. You have to connect those into one sound, and then we'll have the unity.
What is this picture of vowel and consonant?
Yeah, the
I don't really.
The vowel is
The open vowel
A-E-O.
is like the infinite spirit or the infinite inconscient. And the narrow, the closed consonant is our kind of narrow life, limited, hedged in.
Or in the alphabet, no? The vowels are the A-E-I-O-U, and the consonants are
Right.
all the other ones, no?
Yeah, the consonant is a more closed sound, a vowel is a more open sound.
A-O. The E-N.
I just in this course with Vladimir on Sanskrit, that is in Sanskrit they have four vowels, that is A, and they are all infinite in sound. A, Well, they have the other ones, that is the vowels itself that are infinite in the sound.
Yes, that's why Larry says the consonants are more,
Yeah.
no, it's only
Yeah, it's
more
an
close.
N, yeah. Actually, I worked on this one also, on this infinity of the sound.
Yeah, I mean, that kind of illustrates it also. There's these open sounds, and then it comes to the closed sound at the end.
Yeah, if you go to Swaran, we have the whole science behind sound. So that's the whole uniqueness of Swaran because it's on the sound.
So, what is that small piece of land that connecting matter and spirit?
Here he's saying it's the ascending soul.
Okay, psychic.
Well, yeah, our developing soul is moving between matter and spirit.
Yeah, because the soul is the spark of the one, which is just a spark with a small narrow connection from the whole. So you have one, each one of us has one. No? So it's very narrow.
Tori, would you continue?
394, yes?
Yes.
In the wide, signless ether of the self,
One line before.
one line before, two are the ends of the mysterious plan. In the wide, signless ether of the self, in the unchanging silence, white and nude, aloof, resplendent like gold dazzling suns, veiled by the ray no mortal eye can bear. The spirits bear an absolute potencies, bound in the solitude of the thoughts of God. A rapture and a radiance and a hush, delivered from the approach of wounded hearts, denied to the idea that looks at grief, remote from the force that cries out in its pain, in its inalienable bliss belief.
Okay, thank you. Okay, again, he's referring to the two ends of existence here, spirit and nature. Earlier, he had referred to them as matter and mind. But these are the two ends of the mysterious plan. And now he begins describing just one pole of these, the spirit, in the wide, signless ether of the self, in the unchanging silence, white and nude. There he says, the spirits bear and absolute potencies, burn in the splendor of the thoughts of God. So these absolute potencies, he's going to refer to in the lines that follow with a pronoun, with they. So he'll be referring to those. At the end of the passage, in his inalienable bliss they live. He said that they burn in the solitude of the thoughts of God. So in his inalienable bliss, in God's inalienable bliss, these potencies live.
The powers.
But what's important is that in a way they're kind of remote and cut off from life, from our life here. Delivered from the approach of wounded hearts, denied to the idea that looks at grief, remote from the force that cries out in its pain. They live in this inalienable bliss and take no part in this lower nature of pain and suffering and ignorance.
Larry, but what we see there is the ones who are being delivered are those who are veiled, no? The one which the Spirit is delivering us, who has the idea that we are always in grief.
No, I think he's referring to these absolute potencies are delivered from all of this.
What does he mean by delivered?
Freed.
Freed. Yes.
That is, for me, it's also the first sentence that we started. Two are the ends of the mysterious plan. This is the essence from all this knowledge to understand it.
Yes.
There's the high, free potency, and the involvement in the earth's process.
Correct.
That is, Auroville is in every different way expressed it.
But here he's kind of talking about that spirit as if kind of remote, divided, separate from the Lord, and is delivered from all of these things and is unaffected.
Yes, but it implies that those who are being delivered are us.
I think that is delivered from our ignorance.
That delivered is a strange word for potencies which are always free from it anyway. When you are delivered from a previous bondage. So they never were bonded. They never were bound by anything. So why are they delivered? I don't understand this word. Free.
Maybe they have
Free.
Free, but not delivered from.
Maybe
but the whole
earlier they have experienced this one, and then they are only delivered from this experience and free there.
no, you have to read the whole sentence. It says delivered from the approach of wounded hearts. We are the wounded hearts.
But they have been
They are already delivered from that. They're not bound by it. No.
Yeah, that's what Mother says. When you live in the psychic consciousness, you don't feel the suffering even when you're on earth. You live in different consciousness. When you live in the vital consciousness and mental consciousness, you feel the suffering.
I agree.
So the soul is always free. There is always a higher one, a higher plane and lower plane. It chooses to be in matter in the lower plane. So that's why it's two.
Yes, that's why you're ascending now. See, we have the idea that looks at grief. We're always in this grief consciousness, but that's denied to them already. Remote from the force that cries out in its pain.
Why it is called mysterious plan?
The unknown.
Because it's very difficult to decipher or understand. I mean, we live in this world, and I mean, Sri Aurobindo reveals this to us, but otherwise, where would we be in understanding this plan? And it's a very, it's an obscure plan. I mean, there is this absolute potencies of God, and then there is all the struggle and suffering on the other hand. What is the plan here? I mean, why is it like that? Why are these two things existing side by side and somehow they're not joining and coming together?
For evolution, that's all. You push you, suffer, push you, you clean, push you, clean, push you.
You still have a question?
It's evolution.
Wait, he has a question.
When we cut up, you are the one with that part. When we cut up and become separated, all the things started.
Why did we?
Why and when?
Why and when? Well, that's part of the mystery.
There's no beginning to anything.
But,
You're here.
but also, I think maybe he will explain that. I mean,
He did explain it.
there
If you
is.
read the whole Savitri, it
Yeah.
explains.
And that gets very.
So actually, Mother says in
The
the first lines of Savitri, how the universe began, it's itself an explanation. And Mother has explained it in her own words in the first line of Savitri, and she explains why the separation happened and how the four individual beings cut off from consciousness and became the four hostile forces. And then it was just, there was no other way that one could become multiple without getting divided and being separated.
Yes, and you can't have the play without this,
Yeah.
from the 100% it becomes 0%. From superconscious it becomes inconscious, and the game begins from there. So we're climbing out from it.
For me, it's also to understand this, why they have to be free. That is also, all, from my understanding, our process of evolution. We have to learn to step back and to look at it what is there, then we are not involved so much. Otherwise, we could not see the whole and could help. So that is the same process, what we have to learn.
To awaken from.
In fact, I think if when we continue in this next passage, he's going to say something very similar to that. So you can read that. Okay, so you will read from Immaculate in Self-Knowledge. I was saying to Margaret, I don't have the number.
Immaculate in self-knowledge and self-power. How there repose on the eternal will. Only his law they count, and him obey. They have no goal to reach, no aim to serve. Impeccable in their timeless purity, all barter or bribe of worship they refuse. Unmoved by pride of revolt and ignorant prayer, they lack not our virtue and our sin. They bend not to the voices that implore. They hold no traffic with error and astray. They are guardians of the silence of the truth. They are keepers of the immutable decree. A deep surrender in their source of mind. A still identity, their way to know. Motionless in their action, like a sleep. At peace, regarding the trouble beneath the stars, restless, watching the worlds of death and chance, immobile, seeing the millenniums pass, untouched by the long neck of vain unknowns, they look on our struggle with impartial eyes, and yet, without them, cosmos could not be.
Wonderful. So nice. They are the source.
So all these are the verb and absolute potentiation.
Wonderful.
And where did they get that power? From that surrender to the divine. They repose calm, they repose on the eternal will. Only his law they count and him obey. They have no goal to reach, no aim to serve. Only they're surrendered to the divine. They don't turn to the suffering human beings responding to their cry. All barter or bribe of worship they refuse. Unmoved by cry of revolt and ignorant prayer. They reckon not our virtue and our sin. They bend not to the voices that implore.
To reckon is to call.
To
Reckon. They reckon not our virtue and our sin.
They don't think about it. They don't take it into account, into consideration.
Because this is still based on the duality, the virtue and the sin, no? When we look at things, it's either good or evil, virtue or sin, the opposite. But for them, they are in the unity of the source, of the divine. So there's no more virtue as sin.
Yeah, that's important, that they're in that unity consciousness of spirit, beyond the dualities, beyond the suffering. And then a deep surrender is their source of might. He says it quite clearly.
The solution, no? There's the identity, the direct identification with the divine. The surrender to the divine, and then eventually we establish a identity with the divine.
The last is a freedom. Otherwise, entangled in all these
Yes.
expressions.
So the goal of yoga, surrender and identification.
So simple. For the ego.
So they're kind of above, at peace, regarding the trouble beneath the stars. As if they're looking down on all of this, but observing, witnessing, but not feeling, responding.
From my understanding, the mother often gives the tool how to get to the stage. And then she said that difficulty are there, stepping back, be calm, and we are helping or offering. Then get more the wideness, and you're not entangled in all these things. She very often, in different ways, expresses how we can get free from this entanglement.
Through surrender.
Yeah,
That's the only way. Surrender. Stand down.
Sudanya, would you continue? Next page.
and it's a beautiful message.
Beautiful.
In 4 years to desire and do and hope. Their stations of you heavenly might. No place uphold the world's enormous task. Its ignorance is by their knowledge lit. Its all lost by their indifference. As the high clouds are low, they were to climb. As the great cloud grows small, the unease and harsh. Their aloofness drives man to surface himself. Our cautions Heads to wait eternal calm, or dogs start mine to make the ocean right, or helpless hearts to ensign the omnipotent force, abusing in the wisdom that made way, and the most infinite of death and tears, abusing in the gradual state of time, carries the sin of the grief that stings the world's heart, careless of the pain that drains its body and life. Love, joy, and sorrow is that gradual love. They have no ocean in the cold that dries. You, you, Asia, not in the evil run. Else might just faint you more and could not say.
Thank you. Let's pause. They are impervious, incapable of being damaged or affected by desire and doom and hope. Their station of inviolable might. Inviolable is secure from violation. Moveless upholds the world's enormous task. That moveless spirit is upholding all of this action of the world. And our ignorance is lit by their knowledge. Our yearning lasts by their indifference.
These two sentences, I think it's interesting. Its yearning lasts by their indifference, as the high draws the low ever to climb. And this understanding that indifference has innate the power to call the lower to the higher. That's an interesting seeing and understanding.
Equanimity and the detachment.
I think it's on an energetic level. They have a yearning in their indifference, in their impersonalism.
It's almost like the mountain climbers are attracted by that, austere peaks and those, kind of terrible, indifferent snowstorms and all of that that's taking place up there. And somehow they want to meet that, to enter into that, to overcome that somehow.
Yeah, but the one when it's referring to its yearning, the its is the world's enormous task, no? It is not them, it is us. our yearnings, it lasts because of their detachment and equanimity. So they're always there.
Things refers to the world.
In order, yes, to the world. So, yes, exactly. It's ignorance, our ignorance.
And one aspect of it is that spirit is supporting all of this. It surrounds it, it's carrying this. Without that, this would just sink, Yeah. It would dissolve into chaos or something. It keeps it.
And that's good what you said, because that's one expression how the divine presence is pushing all forward, the nature from time memorial. And that is here the expression that brings forward.
And in a way, he's only kind of expressing a kind of a partial truth here. I mean, he's emphasizing this remoteness of the spirit. It's kind of indifference in that, but also, there is that mother force that, and the grace and all of these things that actively intervenes and supports, so he's kind of emphasizing one particular aspect of this separation of spirit and matter. But there is another part, and he will also, I think, reveal that as we continue.
But also how all is working and goes forward. That is behind this knowledge.
Yeah, the evolution is the basis of it.
And here he's stressing also how, that these potencies that are there, they're accepting the way things are now. They're acquiescing in the wisdom that made hell. I mean, they allow. They stand by and watch. And yet, because they also understand the wisdom or the reason behind it.
Acquiescing can be also termed as acknowledging, We acknowledge it.
Yeah.
It's there. It's the fundamental play. So we're acknowledging. We're not denying anything.
On line 445, Ernst might have tried to keep mouth and could not say. So if they were different and more pitiful, they could not say.
Yeah.
Oh yes, but the 2 lines before that is very important as well. No, they have no portion in the good that dies. Mute, pure, they share not in the evil done. Oh, this is very important. It's true. They are part of the flame, but they are not bound by the flame. That's why Srila Aurobindo says, the unbound playmaker. They make the ones who started the play, the source, but they are not bound by the play. Oh, it's fantastic.
Yes, but the reason is that they could not say what they did. This is the point.
Sorry?
Yeah, they don't see, otherwise they would be caught in the duality. We're caught in dualities. We see good and evil, and we want the good, fighting against the evil. But then we're caught in that duality.
Exactly.
But they're above both good and evil.
Yes, they are unbound by it.
But I like the second part. Their aloofness drives man to surpass himself. Is my response is this line when the question about evolution. is exactly this. That's all. Always for surpassing every boundary. Yes, every falsehood, everything. That's all God is fantastic.
It is.
For that you come to the
Now we
not
get.
easy, but okay. It's like that.
That's nice, no man to surpass himself. So we're not talking about something that is beyond man. Here's what the supramental being comes into picture. The one beyond man.
But when you think about it, it's not only the aloofness which drives man to surpass himself. In fact, all the attributes of the divine drive man to surpass himself, whether it is aloofness, whether it is calm, whether it is detachment, or love, or compassion, or whatever.
Yes.
They always drive man to surpass himself, you know?
Yes, yes.
But the aloofness makes it easier to see all the is.
The non-detachment.
Yes.
It's only one factor, like what Korea said, love, compassion, all of that. This is very important. The Ananda lyrics.
So we will also now, I think, come to kind of this more active component of the divine. And Ganga Lakshmi could read. Alive to the truth.
Acquiescing. 46. Okay. Alive to the truth that dwells in God's extreme. Awake to the motion of all seeing force. The slow outcome of the long ambiguous years, and the unexpected good from the woeful dead. It's the immortal sees not as we then receive. He looks of the hidden aspect and screened powers. He knows the low and natural line of things, unbridled by a brief life's will to act, and harassed by the spur of pity and fear. He makes no art to empty the cosmic mouth, or the red stone jarring earth to reconcile. In time he waits for the eternal hour, yet a spiritual sacred end is there, while the tardy evolution scores while on, and nature use ways to adapt the divine intervention from above.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Then 449 and the unexpected code from woeful, how do you say?
Woeful.
Woeful?
Yeah.
Woeful means full of pain?
Yeah, pain, suffering, sorrow.
Can you explain more what is this he looks? Where comes the he from?
What now?
He knows
Yeah, who is he?
the immortal.
The immortal.
He kind of shifts here. Before he was talking about those potencies as plural, they. Now he turns to a singular he, the immortal. So he is awake to a motion of all-seeing force. So that's very important because this divine, immortal being who is looking on all of this, all the trouble of life, he sees behind it an all-seeing force working. And it's working slowly, the slow outcome of the long, ambiguous years. It sees the future outcome of all this difficulty, which we don't see. We are caught up in the moment. But it sees where it's leading towards.
These two lines, he looks on hidden aspects and hidden powers, not only on the surface of what is going on, but on all levels. And he knows a long natural line of things.
Yeah, again, we're always just looking at the surface, but we don't understand the forces operating, the things that are moving all of this. We don't see that all-seeing force behind. We don't see even the smaller forces and beings behind that are moving all of this outside circumstance.
I have a doubt here. Line 453. Undriven by a belief life's will to act. I understand we are supposed to act, but here it says undriven by a belief life's will to act. What does this mean?
Well, again, he's referring to this immortal being. So this immortal being doesn't have this, it's not caught up in this brief life like we are. We're caught up in the moment. In our brief life, we see its end coming. We want to get something done before we depart. And that immortal isn't moved in that way. He doesn't look at things in the same way that we do. He looks through the long eons of time, sees where all of this drift, this evolution is moving towards. Our spirit also participates in that, but we're normally ignorant of that.
The next was, he makes no haste to untie the cosmic knot. Now, won't it be awesome if he made haste?
We're in that time now. We call it evolution fast forward. So it's necessary, otherwise the humans will destroy the whole planet.
Well, I think that's why it's divine intervention through This was bad from time. You speak loud. No, I just said he makes no haste to untie the cosmic knot. That is the natural process of nature's evolution. But he's saying the forthcoming lines, he's explaining a divine intervention from above. So it's the divine intervention that we slow that process.
Beautiful. The answer is there. See, nature doesn't care. She said, okay, species suffer the next comet striking where it doesn't matter and will go billions of years. But now it's different. You know? The divine intervention has happened.
And I can share that this life, and even about the great lives you have on harassed by the scholar people there. In the early days of the ashram, one people come to the side. It was what to meet Savitri. And this all get people are so strong. We go to Savitri so that we know. It's not essential time, this alcohol. But those who are great, they are start trying. If they try to be late or somebody. And why is there so good? If they are coming to this competition today, is coming so far distance, then the other thing, I think simply nothing like this. It is not driven by this. Very
I forgot what is
yeah,
a spur.
all this vibes in the PT or the
What is a spur?
Spur?
Yeah,
What the caballeros.
yeah, the cowboy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the horse rider. Yeah.
So he spurs the horse to move it faster.
Yes.
There are some beautiful lines that come later in the poem about, that this imploring the divine to come now, don't wait, like while we suffer, come down. And then the Divine Mother consents after that imploring and does come. So we're coming to this other aspect of, the grace or of the divine that does intervene and come forward. So, Nitya, would you continue?
Alive in a depth rotating universe. We were not here upon a casual globe, abandoned to a task beyond our force. Even through the tangled anarchy of fate, and through the bitterness of death and fall, an outstretched hand is felt upon our lives. It is near us in unnumbered bodies and births. In its unslackening grasp, it keeps for us faith, the one inevitable, supreme result. No will can take away, and no tool change, the crown of conscious immortality. The Godhead promised to our struggling souls when first man's heart died death and suffered life.
Thank you.
Why does he refer to the universe as dead rotating?
It seems that way. Sometimes it seems that we're alive here in this kind of deadness of space, enormous space, infinite. But he's saying, we rule not here upon a casual globe. So he's kind of denying this in a way as the reality. We're not abandoned. Sometimes we may feel abandoned in our life. Why am I faced with this?
The big question, why?
And these lines are so beautiful. Even through the tangled anarchy called fate, and through the bitterness of death and fall, an outstretched hand is felt upon our lives. It is near us in unnumbered bodies and births. So we're not abandoned. Actually, the divine is there, watching, supporting, helping, guiding, moving things. This is that conscious force that's behind, although we don't see it, we don't feel it necessarily, but it's always there.
I like also, it's interesting for me here that it is the expressing that we have unnumbered bodies and births. And because in normal consciousness it's not there.
Yeah.
It's only the life and this and not, and that's why I like so much the film of Ramanudi, Life After Life. It shows how the people coming and going. Yeah? So it is the mass of people are not aware, not thinking about it. They have many lives there.
Not just people.
It has to develop more. That's one of the points from my understanding, which has to develop more, this awareness. And even then, always is the outstretched hand there, with all the lives.
Yeah, that's part of that idea of being harassed by the brevity of our life. You know, if we could also see and understand that we've had unnumbered lives and we'll have more to come, that it's not just this one brief life we're confined to, that our souls actually persist through many lives.
This is important, no, Larry, because there are many cultures or groups of humans who think that this life is the only life. They don't even think about rebirth or reincarnation. It's out of the radar.
This is Buddhism?
Not quite. Buddhism talks about rebirth. It's not that. It's not that.
I'm sorry.
Yes, it's not Buddhism.
I read like
Christianity.
It's Christianity?
Yes, more or
The
less.
wrong understanding of Christianity.
Yeah, the wrong.
That's why they are forced to do unspeakable evil, where there are 27 virgins waiting for them in heaven.
But that's a distorted form.
Yeah, that's why we're into what it is acknowledged that there are individuals like here on earth who still think like that. No? We're not denying it. It's happening.
But there are also the atheists.
Here,
It's very important.
Yeah.
The one inevitable supreme result, no will can take away and no doom can.
Yeah.
It's true. It's really, really true.
Yeah, and what that is?
This for me is very, very, very important after a long time now.
The crown of conscious immortality.
Yay.
Exactly.
Fantastic.
To live conscious of one's immortality.
Yes.
So little it's like
Beautiful, no? It's like our potentiality, no?
Mm. And he's saying this will come. This is something each of us.
It's a promise, no?
Yeah, it's a promise.
But not only the promise from me, is little, very small experience, but it's very, very important. As I said, the small experience is better near the grass movement of the, is very in agenda, sorry, I read both. Alors for me, the compilation about Auroville and the mother is very, very, very interesting. For example, Mother talk yesterday when I listened about desire. Desire is not only, is incredible what Mother said. In 4 November 1963, is incredible description about the way, inner way, and evolution about the people. Is marvelous. Always the end is one.
And we had talked, he had asked about the mysterious plan. Well, here he's saying this conscious immortality was promised to our struggling souls when first man's heart dared death and suffered life. So from the very beginning, this crown of conscious immortality was there. So that's part of the mysterious plan. And that plan actually was not very clearly understood by mankind, I think, up until now.
Yes, we have to evolve out from the ignorance of it.
Maybe when we, a human being will understand it fully, then as a mother said, one can smile
Yeah.
at what is happening and connect to it.
Tim, would you like to continue?
One who has shaped this world is ever its Lord. Our errors are his steps upon the way. He works through the fierce vicissitudes of our lives. He works through the hard breath of battle and toil. He works through our sins and sorrows and our tears. His knowledge overrules our nations. Whatever the appearance we must bear. Whatever our strong ills and present fate, when nothing we can see but drift and vain, a mighty guidance leads us still through all. After we have served this great divided world, God's bliss and oneness are our inborn right. The date is fixed in the calendar of the unknown, an anniversary of the birth sublime. Our soul shall justify its checkered walk. All will come near that now is not at all far.
Thank you.
What is drift and bear? Like for
Yeah.
two.
Well, drift is like matter deposited, let's say, by a glacier, or it could just be something, there's like driftwood on the sea, things that are just kind of carried waste material. Yeah, just kind of flowing. In Baal, at least one meaning is woe, sorrow. But there are also bales, it's, just kind of bundles of things. But I think maybe this woe and sorrow is more appropriate.
One is drifting and one is stuck in a bay.
Yeah, I mean, it maybe kind of carries a little bit of both those meanings.
Because people can get polarized into something, no? This is the only truth.
Vicissitudes. Sorry, mine.
Yeah, I see.
477.
Mutability, changefulness, the changing aspects, but also it can be difficulty or hardships. The kind of the surface changing circumstances of our life, which are all often difficult. Events occurring by chance. All of these meanings it carries.
Yes. That is unwelcome or unpleasant.
Interesting is again the line, this knowledge overrules our nescience.
Yeah.
Can you reflect on it?
Thankfully.
So it's you.
Yeah, on that earlier page there was the line, awake to a motion of all-seeing force. Kind of behind everything, there is this all-seeing force. And that is working through the vicissitudes of our lives, working through the hard breath of battle and toil, and through our sins and sorrows and our tears. That force is kind of working through all of these things. And that all-seeing knowledge overrules our nescience. Although we are ignorant, we stumble and fall, still that force behind leads us through all.
Grace.
A mighty guidance leads us still through all. That force is behind all these things that we see on the surface in our ignorance. And we can continue from there. Would you read, please? Yeah.
All will come near that now
No.
or far.
No, a little higher, I think.
485.
After we have served.
After we have served this great divided world, God's bliss and oneness are our inborn right. A date is fixed in the calendar of the unknown, an anniversary of the birth sublime. Our soul shall justify its checkered walk. All will come near that now is not or found. These calm and distant mites shall act at last, immovably ready for their destined task. The ever-wise compassionate brilliances await the sound of the incarnate's voice to lead and bridge the chasms of ignorance and heal the hollow, yearning ruts of life and fill the abyss that is the universe.
Thank you.
A date is fixed, but it's unknown when. So it's sure to come.
So it seems like 491. These calm and distant minds shall act at last. Immovable liberty, the ever-wise compassionate brilliancies. It looks like these are what he called the page before the spirits bear an absolute potency. They are not transformed into compassionate brilliancies. No?
Await the sound of the incarnate's voice.
Yeah, that's so important, I think.
Beautiful, no? It should be the spirit has incarnated into matter.
Yeah.
And which is the avatar.
Calming them down, bringing them down.
Because the incarnate is even capital I. So it's the incarnate.
Das would be nice when you reflect it in the more just, it's a little more mysterious.
I mean, we can look at Sri Aurobindo and the Mother as calling down, bringing down this supramental light and force here upon earth in order to overcome these struggles and difficulties of life, to transform the life here. And somehow, apparently that's also needed, that incarnate divine here within, living within matter, calling that higher consciousness and force down into their own physical bodies. That's part of the necessity of that transforming force. Only they could do that.
So we can follow.
So we can follow.
They're the catalyst.
Naught is nothing, no? Not.
Yes, correct.
The last line is that this is the universe.
The abyss that is the universe. And it's like an abyss, it seems. This kind of lifeless.
Hello, you have this also?
That's why we call it the climbing out from the abyss. It starts from the very bottom of the abyss.
Brother, here we can say it's more to get inspired from above, not from down.
No, it's both. It's both. The above has become the abyss, so the game starts. You can call it let there be light or to be kind. So it depends on how you interpret it. You start from the abyss, from the ignorance, then you climb out of it.
Those were those two extremes that he was talking about, the matter and the spirit, or nature and spirit. So this is the joining of the two ends of existence. I think we will stop there for today. Sorry I didn't get to the last few people here. Had a lot of conversation today. So we have any music or anything?
Yes.
Along a path of years serpentine, in the coiled blackness of her nascent core, the earth goddess toils across the sands of time. A being is in her whom she hopes to know. A word speaks to her heart she cannot hear. A fate compels whose form she cannot see. In her unconscious orbit through the void, out of her mindless depths, she strives to rise. A perilous life again, a struggling joy.
Thanks to Sri Aurobindo.